Welcome to The Real Authority. Today I'm talking about perhaps the most anticipated comic book slash superhero movie of the year. I don't think there's anybody who can argue with that. Superman. Written and directed by James Gunn and supposed to launch a brand new DCU. The plot was a lot more complex than I was expecting, which I'll explain why in a minute. But the simple premise is Superman, played by David Corn Swat, has to contend with Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, with Superman wanting to do good and Lex Luthor wanting to destroy everything that has to do with Superman. Simple premise. Also, Lois Lane is here. Also, three superpowered individuals are here. A lot of monsters, a lot of Superman, a lot of stuff, I guess. Now, when it comes to this movie, I was undeniably excited. I mean, Superman, it's Superman. It's the movie that is going to make or break the comic book genre forever. That's literally the expectation everyone had going into it. Will it work, or will it single-handedly destroy the genre? Not literally, because let's be real here, this is still going to make money, good or bad, in Fantastic Four as well. But superhero fatigue has been something that has been prevalent now more than ever. And while people were undeniably going to be excited for Superman, that still doesn't look at the huger issue here. Is that this is coming off the back of a lot of disappointing comic book movies that have just made people sick of the genre entirely. So I can't deny that a lot of people were hoping that Superman would revitalize the genre, even though it may be impossible for just one movie to do that. Also, starting a franchise is a hard ask, considering that more than a decade ago, Man of Steel started a brand new universe which showed signs of diminishing returns, with a few great films and projects sprinkled in between the mediocrity. So it was refreshing when James Gunn brought a bit of flavor into that universe with the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, enough so that Warner Bros. Basically entrusted him to reboot the universe entirely, leading to one of the most divisive years for comic book movies ever, 2023, which DC had to carry the burden alongside Marvel. And Marvel decided to only have one movie in their universe released last year. So I think 2025 was the make or break for comic book movies. It's still the make or break, in my opinion, to Marvel. And James Gunn has proven himself to be a great director in and out of the MCU. Again, the Suicide Squad was really great. And his three Guardians of the Galaxy movies and the holiday special were really strong, probably high points in the entire franchise, with a lot of people considering Volume 3 of that franchise the high point of everything post-Endgame. So yeah, no denying Gunn would do a great job. Anyhow, before moving on to the actual movie, my connection with Superman, very big. Grew up with the Christopher Reeve movies, at least two of the films were great. As I mentioned in my Distant review, Distant came out. I couldn't stand watching Superman 4 again. I tried my best, but nah, I just didn't want to waste my time again. Still one of my least favorite films ever. I even tried watching Superman Returns. It's not a bad movie, but it really did not pique my interests in the slightest. I did watch Man of Steel before going into this. I didn't go further in the universe, although I will probably. Man of Steel is just an odd way to do the Superman movie. Very dark, very gritty, and also very messy. Didn't really feel like a Superman movie in the slightest. And before getting into the actual movie, I'm going to move away from those films for a second and talk about one of the most underrated Superman media you can ever find, the Fleischer cartoons. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel.
Yeah, I grew up with them. I watched 16 out of the 17 beforehand. I may actually watch the 17th one as soon as I'm done recording, so if I edit this after I see the cartoon, is it good or bad, future me? So yeah, Fleischer cartoons are really strong. It doesn't have the iconic villains we've come to know Superman for, but I mean, they're interesting time capsules, except when Fleischer stopped doing them and it got taken up by a different studio. Then you see the dip in quality. Anyway, on to the hopefully better start to a brand new universe that's hopefully better than the previous one. Did it live up to expectations? Yes and no. And I use no in the kindest terms possible because this is kind of an incredible movie. I don't use no in a negative connotation whatsoever. I will get my only nitpicks out of the way, and I do mean nitpicks. In the first act or so, there is a bit of slowness, but it never ceases to be important. I'm usually able to overlook pacing issues if they're that minimal, so just want you to know that I was able to overlook them. And since it's James Gunn doing a Superman movie, there are some lines of dialogue, especially in that stretch that I just mentioned, where it does feel like he's adding his Guardians flavor, especially in the dialogue. And luckily, the rest of the movie, it does work, but there are some moments where it kind of feels a bit awkward. Okay, now here's everything else that made the movie great. The acting's pretty strong. I was impressed at how much the acting did work. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane was a charming romantic interest. Eddie Gathegi, Nathan Fillion, and Isabella Merced also did really well with their three characters. Superpowered beings that are not Superman that are in this movie, but I thought all of them did a pretty great job. And for Mr. Terrific, he was terrific. That was lame. However, the two actors that I think a lot of people are going to be talking about and the ones that we were most excited for were how Superman and Lex Luthor are going to be, considering they were played by David Corenswet and Nicholas Hoult. Corenswet hasn't had a lot of films, but Hoult has had a ton of projects where he showed his talents, so I'll start with him. He's pretty much great. Pretty close to what Gene Hackman did in the Superman movies of the 70s and 80s. But Hoult does his own thing in terms of bringing a unique energy and a unique blend of campy silliness and actual genuine villainy, so I gotta give him credit for that. However, we got Corenswet to talk about, and he was pretty much incredible as this version of Superman. Usually for a Superman movie, we need our main character to work, and I gotta say, Corenswet proves to be probably one of the most sympathetic interpretations of Superman we've ever gotten in film. The script gives him a lot to do, but also he never ceases to be charismatic, even in the most dire of moments. Like, you feel for him a lot, which I really did appreciate. So Corenswet, you did an amazing job. I'm excited to see what you do next in this franchise and in general. You fit the cape and cowl like a glove, bro. For James Gunn's directing and screenplay, I was really impressed because, no spoilers, but it takes a very different approach in terms of the Superman origin story. By that I mean it's not really a Superman origin story. I think only in the first few minutes you get what you need to know. The film understands that people are aware of the Man of Steel's origin story, so it tries to do its own thing while also providing a brief recap of what audiences already know, while also using that origin story in a very unique manner. Unique in how it kind of makes Superman a more tragic and compelling protagonist. I won't say anything for risk of, again, spoilers, but I feel like the movie is trying to respect the original movies while also paving its own identity. And I feel like James Gunn's directing and screenplay do that incredibly well. Like, it still tries to pay direct tribute to the other Superman projects. Like, there's one scene that is ripped straight from Superman 3, but it does try to be its own film. Not having the origin story be the focus, or at least the focus of the first few minutes, was the right decision. So I was really impressed that they did that. Usually praise cinematography when it's great, when it's this great, that's worth praise. Henry Bram did a fantastic job with the cinematography. The movie looks gorgeous. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the score. The score manages to bring a sense of hope and spark and wonder to the proceedings. It does tribute the original John Williams theme a few times, which is fine. They don't make it the focus. The score really tries to pave its own identity alongside the rest of the movie. So I gotta give credit to David Fleming and John Murphy. They did a great job with the music. A few more things. First of all, the narrative is compelling. However, it could have ran into an issue where it felt overstuffed because they do introduce a lot here. Again, the simple premise is Superman versus Lex Luthor, but they do a lot of other things. As I mentioned, there's the three superheroes. There's Lois Lane. They also introduce some other plot points. No spoilers, but they do a lot with the narrative. It's not as straightforward as you would think. But thankfully, the directing and screenplay are so understanding of this issue, it avoids potentially falling flat. I guess the only way I could realistically explain it is, despite introducing so many characters, Superman remains the main character. It's not like he's pushed to the sideline in favor of other characters. While other characters may get the focus in our scenes, you're still invested in Superman. You may be invested in some of the other characters, but Superman is still the main character of Superman. Also, in spite of the 5 to 10 minutes where it does slow down, the 2-hour, 9-minute runtime has a very nice pace to it. Like, after those 5 to 10 minutes are done, and even beforehand, the pacing's pretty much perfect. One other thing, with the introduction of a lot of characters, there were some which I thought would be annoying from the get-go. Like Eve Tasmacher's in this, played by Sarah Sampio. How they introduce her was a bit corny. She's the comedic relief. But I'm surprised to say that characters like her are executed very well in here, so if you're expecting an annoying character to show up, just know that they will justify their existence down the line. Right, the CGI, I forgot the CGI. CGI is definitely pretty strong. I don't think there are any hiccups in terms of the CGI here. It's pretty much flawless. Superman offers a lot, and a lot done well. In spite of my nitpicks, the nitpicks don't ruin the fact that this movie not only recaptures a lot of the magic from the other movies, but creates a lot of its own magic. So it did save the superhero genre, even though one film can't fully save the superhero genre. But by default, it launched a universe, and I am absolutely interested in seeing how this universe expands. But more importantly than that, it's a pretty great Superman movie that also stands on its own. I heard that James Gunn wants each project to stand on its own. If Superman's any indication, this approach will definitely work. Well, I'd probably be the first to say that the original Superman film with Christopher Reeve is the best Superman movie still. I have no doubt in saying that this masterpiece comes a close second. It is absolutely worth watching in theaters. I saw it in IMAX. I think IMAX is probably the best format. It has a lot of wonder, it has a lot of magic, and it also sparks a lot of hope. And Superman as a character should be a beacon of hope, so it succeeds there as well. No doubt in my mind, the Real Authority approves this experience. 10 out of 10. Well, that's about it for the video. Hope you do check it out. Hope this review influenced you too, because it really is worth it. And yeah, the summer season's pretty much heating up right now. Superman being probably one of the best movies the summer has offered so far, and probably entirely in the year. So yeah, definitely check it out. Once again, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications if you enjoyed this video. Comment your thoughts on Superman, or if you want me to review another recent movie, I'll try to make a video on it. And make sure you check out my other videos if you enjoyed this one. Alright, see you guys next time. Peace.